Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Therapy, Etc. I have a special guest today who's going to be talking to us about a really cool challenge that she's been doing. I believe she implemented it in 2019, but she will give us more details on that. So let me get her in here and let's get started. Well, hello, hello.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good.
Welcome to my newest platform, Therapy, Etc. I'm really happy that you're here today.
Thanks, Patty. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Thank you. Well, I didn't really say too much about you, so I want you to share a little bit about you, and then also where you're living right now. Little details, little background.
Yeah. Where do I start? Okay. Well, let's start from the beginning. Well, of course, I know you from grad school. A little bit of my background is I went to LMU, Loyola Marymount University in LA for my bachelor's degree and my master's degree. My bachelor's was in education, master's was in counseling, of course, became a licensed therapist there in LA. And a lot of my previous work and all of my training pre licensure was working with adolescents and
Mhm,
specifically victims of abuse and adolescents in crisis. So,
mhm.
two of my previous jobs to note I was a suicide therapist at an inner city high school in Los Angeles, where the majority of my caseload was working with clients who were in suicide crisis at that time.
Wow.
Yeah.
To say the least. Wow.
Yeah, but it was one of those things where, and I feel like anyone who's, well, any field that you're in, when you're in it for a number of years, you start to realize what works for you. And it was
Mhm,
something that really worked for me. I really liked working with kids, teenagers
mhm,
specifically, and I really liked helping them when I knew that they had nowhere else to go.
mhm,
So that was really neat. I also worked at a nonprofit out of the Hawthorne area, so right outside of LA,
mhm.
where we specialized in victims of child abuse and domestic violence, in
Wow.
addition to perpetrators. So we worked a lot with parents as well who were, they were perpetrators of either child abuse or domestic
Mhm,
violence. There was a lot of involvement with the Department of Children and Family Services in order to, help the families reunify with their children and kind of, get the help that they needed. So
mhm.
that was my background, kind of pre-private practice. I then went on to work at LMU for a little bit, and then my family
Mhm.
said we need to move out of LA. I lived there my entire life, so that was really a big change, and that's what leads me to where I am now. So my husband and I moved to a town called Genoa, Nevada. It is the first settlement of a Nevada, which is pretty cool. It was,
Interesting.
yeah, so settled in 1851. We have a really cute little downtown that has, I don't know, like a couple of gift shops, a couple of restaurants with historic buildings, the
Mhm.
first like saloon of the state, which is kind of fun. It's the
Wow.
Genoa Bar, like the oldest saloon in Nevada. Um,
Oh, man.
so, we don't live in a 100-year-old home or anything, but it is kind of cool to be near so much history. And when we moved here, I left working full time and started my own private practice, which has been really
Yes.
exciting.
That's so amazing. So how come
Yeah.
that part of Nevada? Or why even leave LA?
Well, why leave LA? Unfortunately, I have a lot of reasons.
I know, right? There's a lot of pros, a lot of cons. I totally get it.
Yeah, there are a lot of pros and cons. Well, why we left LA, at the time, we had a newborn, like when we were making the decision a few years ago.
Mhm,
So my daughter's now 3. And my husband always wanted to leave LA. He grew up in Manhattan Beach. I grew up in Valencia, so out by like Six Flags.
mhm,
And we lived in Westchester for about 10 years before we moved. And we really liked it, but the traffic was terrible. Like my husband had a commute to the valley, which, was only
mhm.
supposed to be what, 20 miles, but it would take an hour and a half.
Wow.
That just
Yeah.
wasn't enjoyable. Having
That
kids, it was
hasn't
just
changed.
right.
Still like that.
Having kids, it was just like we couldn't stay there and have what we wanted. We would just have to be working a lot, and we didn't want to work a ton. We
Mhm.
wanted to kind of manage that so that we could spend more time with our kids. So we chose Genoa because in 2006, my parents actually relocated here from LA.
Oh, I
And
see.
I always thought it was just the strangest place to live. I'm like, Mom, like, you live on fields. Like, it's a development. So there's, a couple hundred houses, but then you're just like open fields everywhere. There's
Mhm.
cows. There's, I don't know, like every farm animal you can think of. Like when you drive into our
Mhm.
neighborhood, there's this house that just has like alpacas, like right off the highway. We're like, this is
Oh
so
my
weird.
goodness.
Yeah. My
Because
daughter
you grew
loves
up in
llamas.
LA.
So
Yeah, you grew up in LA your whole life. You're like, "What is this?"
yeah, like we had the like occasional coyote or raccoon, but not cows.
Yeah.
So, anywho, my husband always wanted to move up here. I was kind of on the fence. Once we had kids, I was just ready to kind of get out of LA. So we
Mhm.
chose the neighborhood where my mom lives. We looked around,
Nice.
but we left a lot of family. So it was really
Mhm.
nice to move to at least a family member.
Mhm.
So
That's
she
nice
lives a
that you're,
block
like,
away
close
from
to
us.
mom. Oh, nice. So
Yeah.
she can help out, you guys can see each other.
Yeah, she's our nanny. She watches our kids when I work, which is great. She's watching them right
Uh-huh.
now.
Mhm. That's amazing.
Yeah, so we chose this area, like that's one of the reasons, but it's very outdoorsy. We are 20 minutes from the ski slopes, and my husband and I are skiers and snowboarders. We love the snow. And this particular area, we're right below the mountains, so we get snow, but not all winter long. Like we'll
Mhm.
have a couple of big storms and it'll stay for maybe a week or two, if that,
Mhm.
and then it'll go away. So it's kind of nice. Like we don't live in snow, but we get snow.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
and then we just drive 20 minutes and we can do all the things we really like. We can be at
That's awesome.
the beach here, which is a lake beach. Um, we hope to, start boating one day because Lake Tahoe is just like a beautiful lake to be on. Um,
Yeah, okay, so it's, like, in that area up north then,
yeah.
northern Nevada.
Yes, Northern Nevada. I should have said
Okay.
that. So we are 20 minutes from Lake Tahoe and we
I
live near
see.
the capital. So the capital of Nevada is actually Carson City, Nevada, not Las Vegas.
That's like anytime I think of
Yeah.
Nevada, I think of Vegas.
Yeah, it's very different up here. We're still high desert, but we have the whole Sierra Nevada mountain range. So
Mhm.
it's not Vegas. Um, so yeah, we're a couple hours from like the Bay Area. So,
Ah,
and we're
okay,
very close to the
nice.
California Nevada border. So, there's some places you go around here where you're really just like going back and
In
forth between the two
California.
states.
Got it,
Yeah.
got it. Wow,
So,
that's pretty cool. I mean, especially because you get to be close to your mom,
yeah, it's been
so
really
that's
nice.
yeah, that's awesome. So you started
Yeah.
implementing something that I was really curious about. So I want you to share a little bit about what this, what is it, like 1,000-hour challenge?
Yeah, 1,000 hours outdoors or outside might be the technical term.
Okay.
So when we moved here, I knew no one except for my mom. And I had an almost 2-year-old and was pregnant. Um, and I was just like, I need to figure out something to do. We hadn't really made friends yet. Thank goodness we've made a ton of friends since then. But as a mom, I'm on a number of like Facebook groups. So I have my like
Mhm,
therapist Facebook groups I'm in, and then I have my
mhm,
mom ones. And
mhm,
one of them, I think it's called Making Today Fun. And it's just this
mhm,
like super fun little group where people just share activities that they've done and I don't know, just things they do with their kids.
mhm.
And someone at one point must have shared this page, which is called 1,000 Hours Outside Challenge. There's a website, I don't know, 1000hoursoutside.com or something like that. And this
Mhm.
mom just won day years ago, I don't know, 5, 6 years ago,
Mhm.
decided that she wanted to get her kids outside more. And she came up with 1,000 hours because apparently that's the average amount of time that kids spend on screens in a year.
Oh, really?
Which is about 2.5 hours a day, um,
Oh,
outside
every
of, I
day.
guess, school, because now a lot of kids are still in school online. So it's not,
Yeah.
I don't think it took into account school online, but just, watching TV, playing with their tablet. And so I don't know, this challenge that she made for her family was that she was going to replace the hours that the average American child spends on electronics and on screen time with being outside.
Wow.
Yeah. So I
So you
sat,
see that, you see this, and what's your reaction?
I'm like, well, for, there are all these ideas. I'm like, well, that's easy, 2.5 hours. And then I'm like, wait, I don't know. That kind of sounds hard.
And this is
Uh,
every day.
Right. So it's 1,000 hours total in a year is like the goal. The average would be 2.5 hours.
Mhm,
There's some days we don't get outside. There's days where we're outside for 10 hours, right?
mhm.
Um, so then in this like Facebook group, this just explodes and there's just so many ideas of what people do. And, then of course there's like, what are the rules? There's no rules really. The idea is just you
Like,
get outside.
but I'm thinking, like, does it mean, like, even to the grocery store, or, like, does it has to be intentionally outside? Like, so I'm definitely on the route of, like, I need some
Rules.
rules. I need to know what the parameters are.
Right. Well, I'll share with you what the Dietz family rules are.
Okay.
So we it's essentially anytime we are outdoors. So if I take the kids on a walk, if we go to the beach, a lot of people in our neighborhood have golf carts because we live in a gated neighborhood with private roads. So we'll actually count golf cart rides within our hours. But if you're just in the car, that doesn't count. Um, like every once, I don't know, I'm trying to think, like sometimes, I don't know, like one time earlier before the second kiddo was born, like I'd walk my daughter and she maybe would fall asleep in the stroller. That would count. It's just a matter of being outside.
Mhm,
We
mhm,
try to eat meals outside if the weather is nice. If we go
mhm,
skiing, that counts. Just
mhm.
anytime we are literally outdoors with vitamin D, just like, soaking into our skin.
Yeah. So what are some of the benefits that you've noticed from doing this, not only for yourself, but even, like, with the screens?
Yeah. So I don't know, just being in this field of, psychology, it was really important for me to not have my child exposed to screens at a young age. So we did not really do any screen time prior to two. I think my daughter had like the flu at about like 18 months and we let her watch a couple movies. But other than that, we really never used it. And even now, she's 3. My son's now 1. He was born the first week of COVID, so that was fun.
Oh, wow.
I
Oh,
was listening to
man.
your podcast a couple weeks ago, and I really resonated with her. Dr. Selena, I
Yeah.
believe.
Yes. Oh my goodness.
Uh,
Ooh, okay. You're not the only one or she's not the only one. So many women have gone through this.
yeah. Sorry, I got sidetracked there. So we just never really used a lot of TV time or movie time. Just never really has been something that we've done around here. So it was
Mhm.
nice to have other options to do with our time because as the parent, I sometimes get bored playing. Um, and up until about 9 months ago, I was home a lot with my daughter. I was
Mhm.
building my practice here, so I wasn't working a ton. And there's only so much I can do in her play kitchen, or only so many times I can play Candyland.
Oh my goodness. I remember playing Candyland with clients, so I can't imagine, like, just doing it like double the time.
Right. Now I do it double the time. I do it at work and I do it at home. It's
Yeah.
great. It's like, so Shelby, do you want to share with me what makes you feel happy when you land on blue?
Right? Oh my goodness.
So I would say the
Bringing me
benefits is
back.
right. Definitely just having more variety in our lives. But we live in a beautiful place. Like, if I could really show you, but I'm not going to move my computer around. We live on the edge of our community and we just look at hundreds and hundreds of acres that are not developed
Wow.
and will never be developed.
Oh,
So,
wow.
yeah, so we have beautiful scenery. We have an incredible view of the mountains. Like,
Mhm,
who wouldn't want to be outside? It's
mm,
way better than our backyard in Los Angeles, where we
mhm.
were just surrounded.
Yeah. So do you think you would have been able to do something like this if you were back in LA?
I'm sure we could have. I don't know, maybe have gotten a little more creative, but I don't know, like where we lived in LA, we had parks walking distance. So we could walk to places in our neighborhood, but I don't know how that would have worked with COVID. Here, we
Mhm,
spend a lot of time just in our yard, walking around our neighborhood.
mhm,
But I wouldn't say that just being outdoors, running around, having the sun shining in your face, there's just something about it that gives you like a special kind of energy. And then it
mhm.
also exhausts my children, which is a huge benefit.
Yeah.
Like
I hear
days we
that
don't
that's
get out,
often the goal.
right? Like days we don't get outside, I'm just like, what did we do today? And I'm like, no wonder you don't seem very tired because you need to move around and just have some like free play, you know?
Mhm,
So
mhm.
it's been really fun, but it's definitely a challenge. It's challenging a lot of the time. Some days are easy, but there are days where it's just hard to maneuver and get things moving to
Yeah,
simply get outside.
yeah. So what are some of the things that other people in this Facebook group, were doing,
Yeah.
like, to get
So
outside and, meet the goal?
right? That's where I got which sounds so funny that I needed inspiration, but the inspiration to eat outside.
Mhm,
Kids eat a lot. We have lots of snacks around here. Like, they have like 5 meals a day. So my daughter got a little picnic bench for her birthday last year, and we set it up outside, and we can eat every meal of the day out there if we want, which is really fun and just something
mhm,
different.
mhm.
I bring
Sounds so nice
my
and peaceful.
it is, I even bring my son's high chair outside because it's just like, why not? Like, why can't he just
Mhm,
hang out out there?
mhm.
Um, I got really inspired to camp, which we haven't really done. So the inspiration hasn't gone too far yet. Um, but I grew up tent camping. I have fond memories of tent camping with my family. So last fall, we did a camp out in our backyard.
Oh my
And
goodness, how fun.
yeah, and because I know you're thinking rules, tent camping does count.
No, definitely you're outside. You're outside
Yeah.
of your home, so I can see that totally
Yeah, the
working.
the argument is that RVs don't count because you have, like, electricity and amenities, but if you're in a tent, it counts. So
I
that was a
see.
really fun thing that Shelby and I did. It started out with the whole family, but Calvin was, I don't know, like 6 months old, and it was just getting too complicated to figure out where he was going to sleep in the tent. So him and my husband stayed inside, and Shelby and I slept outside in our backyard, and it was so fun.
Yeah, it's like a
Um,
cute bonding moment.
yeah. What else that is like out of the ordinary? I don't know. Those aren't even out of the ordinary. It's just like we camped in our backyard. Like, how fun is that? You know?
Yeah, but definitely not things that I feel like, at least here in LA, we don't have big yards or, the
Right.
smaller spaces. So that probably wouldn't be something that we'd probably have to get creative to do something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Park in the
Yeah.
or camp in the carport,
Right.
because it's like
Oh,
not a
on
lot
the
of space out
balcony of an
here.
apartment building.
Yeah,
Yeah,
seriously.
I watch a lot of House Hunters. I'm really into that show. And
Mhm.
I see people, buying or renting apartments or condos, and it really makes me wonder, like, what do you do when you don't have outdoor space? And I've been very blessed to have that when we lived in LA and clearly when we live here. And especially during those like early months of COVID where people like weren't doing
Mhm.
anything. We
Mhm.
we had a newborn, so we were really careful, and we luckily had a backyard, and I have friends that don't have yards or even a balcony. Or you have
Yeah.
these cities or countries that were fully shut down and had, I know they're, because of this outdoor group I'm in, I read a lot about some various countries around the world where they were allotted a certain number of minutes outside a day by the like government, and they
Oh,
had to stay
wow.
within like a certain radius of their home in order to regulate for COVID. So not only could you not like, get your hair done or go out to dinner,
Hmm.
but you couldn't just go on a walk. There were rules
Right.
about it. So that was
Yeah.
really interesting to kind of read about other people's experiences.
Yeah, I actually have, she's going to be on the podcast in a few weeks. Well, depending, well, actually, she is, by the time this comes out, her episode's already out. But she was sharing, she actually lives in Germany, and she
Okay.
was sharing about how out there, you have to wear either an N95 or a surgical mask. You cannot wear a cloth mask, or you cannot wear a bandana. They're very,
Wow.
very strict about these things. Like, you will get fined large amounts of money if you're caught without a surgical mask or an N95. They also do have curfew,
Hmm.
so that is still implemented there. What were some other things that she shared? I think the distance learning is still happening. Like, they're pretty
Wow.
strict right now, even now, still with COVID. And she's in
Yeah.
Germany, so it's a very different experience than what we're seeing in the US now.
Yeah. Yeah. And I can't imagine living in that. That's so hard. And
Hmm.
there's so many times in the last year that my husband and I looked at each other and we're just like, we're so grateful we moved when we moved, because
Hmm.
we've had much more opportunity to have a little more of a normal life living in an area that's not condensed.
Right,
So then you
right.
talk about city living or, overseas, and it's just a totally different experience.
Yeah, and I can imagine that where you're at, there's a lot of open space, so less COVID cases,
Yeah.
I'm assuming? So more
Oh,
safety?
yeah. Oh, yeah, way
Mm.
less, and then also, like, we could go hiking early COVID and, like, not see anyone,
Mhm.
because there wasn't a ton of tourism going on, and so a lot of the people that are here, especially in Tahoe, it's
Mhm.
tourists. So when
Mhm.
tourism wasn't happening, you could go somewhere, and you're not gonna see a lot of people. I remember
Mhm.
we'd go to the beach last summer, and they had capacity limits on how many cars could be parked in the parking lot, and that's the only way. It's not like beaches in LA where you can like park and take an Uber, because these are like state beaches you have to pay to get into. So it was really kind of
Oh.
neat to see that we have this ability to go places. Whereas
Mhm.
in LA, you couldn't even go to the beach most of last summer.
Yeah,
So that was
yeah.
really interesting.
Yeah, I remember, like, the beaches were closed, right? And then I know that
Mhm.
there was hiking was closed also.
It was, yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, last summer
So
was
I'm not trying to bash California or LA by any means, but when you said earlier, like, what were the reasons for leaving? It was just so fascinating how the timing really added up for our benefit.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, at the
Because when you
beginning,
think about that time people spent indoors, it's hard
mhm.
on us. It's
Yeah, at the
really
beginning of
hard.
the pandemic, I was living in a different place, and we did have rooftop access where we were at.
Mm.
And the unfortunately, for whatever reason, they ended up closing the rooftop like in the
Oh,
middle of
yeah.
April of 2020. And we're like, come on, like, we don't really have, like, abilities to be outside, and then you're closing the
Right.
rooftop. We're really confined indoors. And so now I've been able to move to a different part of LA, where I have a lot more access and ability to get out
Mm.
more, and definitely not as busy as other parts that are really as
Mhm.
condensed. Um, but definitely still tough nonetheless. And, like, as you're sharing about, like, where you're at right now, I'm just like, that sounds beautiful. It sounds like I'm remembering of, like, when I was in Big Bear earlier this year, just how
Mhm.
everything is just so serene and
Yeah.
calm and beautiful
Yeah.
views everywhere.
Yeah. It's It's really quiet. I lived a mile from LAX.
Oh,
So we go outside and it's just silent except for bird song. It's pretty incredible. So I'm feeling
wow.
really, really lucky that it came when it came for us. Really,
Yeah.
it really helped us get through this past year for sure.
Hmm. So with this challenge, how do you track it?
Oh, I should have brought it in. It's on my refrigerator. So they have the website, the actual organization. I think she's actually a 501(c)(3) now, but I could be wrong. She has different like visual trackers. So this it's I don't know, like people like you and I would draw and submit entries, and then she had like one that won, and you can just go to the
Hmm.
website and download the PDF. So we have
Hmm.
this really kind of cool little design, and there are 1,000 little, I guess, squares or circles or little shapes in the design. And so
Ah,
I shade in one for every hour that we do. So it's a really beautiful visual. And my daughter really likes rainbows, so we do it in like a rainbow pattern. So we follow the Roji
ah.
Biv, and January was red and February was
Uh-huh.
orange. So yeah, and the one that we're using this year is pretty cool because it's segmented by groups of 100. So you can really visualize how far you
You've
are.
gone. Wow.
Yeah.
How many hours have you
Yeah.
done so far?
So we were just counting it this morning, and at about we're at about like 250, I believe it
Mhm.
was. To be on track, I think we needed to be at like 300 by the end of the month, but that's okay.
Yeah,
So
it'll
I
work.
think what's really cool is last January we had 21 hours in the month of January, and I
Uh-huh.
was like 7, 8 months pregnant. It was a really cold January. It was my first winter living here, and um,
Mhm.
now I'm like a day where it's 40, it feels nice and warm. But a year ago,
Mhm.
I didn't think the same.
Mhm.
This January, I think we had over 60. So i- that's
Ah,
that's I
yeah,
think
you're like,
what's
it's like
really fun to
improvements.
see.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, to see how, we've been able to really acclimate to life and kind of get
Mhm.
outside even when it's cold. Um,
Mhm.
Ironically, our snowy days are our best days because with the
Oh,
snow,
oh,
there's
because
so
you're
much to
out.
do. Yeah.
Yeah, with skiing or snowboarding. Although,
Yeah.
like, every time I try to do one of the two, I am just like, it just doesn't work for me. I'm like, I'm just not that person. I'll be
That's
at the
okay.
bottom, I'll be the cheerleader.
There you go. Yeah, so I guess we're at about like 250 so far for
Mhm.
this year, if I'm doing my math correctly. And last year, we ended the year at about 870 hours. So I was pretty proud of
Nice.
ourselves. The fact
Yeah.
that, I didn't know what to expect. It was our first year doing this.
Uh-huh.
And we didn't reach 1,000, but that was okay. It was really
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah.
Um,
I
I'm
like the
hoping,
compassion and just being okay with where you got and being really proud of it.
yeah, because the number's a number. I think the whole
Mhm.
point of this is to be more intentional with our time and what we're
Mhm.
doing and to diversify what we're doing, not just sitting
Mhm.
inside all day.
Mhm.
Um, our it's funny because our goal was to try to reach 300 by the end of this month. And
Uh-oh.
my 3-year-old has had a really hard week because she's 3. So we
Yeah.
went we went on a vacation to Palm Springs last weekend,
Okay.
like a week and a half ago, and she literally would not go outside. Like
Oh my goodness, really?
we went to Palm Springs, Patty, for a family vacation with my husband's whole family, all the cousins, but rented a really, nice house. It was our Christmas present for everyone. We're like, we'll go in
Uh-huh.
April and have like a belated Christmas gift. And my daughter was just like, no, I'm not going outside. And I'm like, what
Oh
do
my
I
goodness.
do?
Like she literally said no to going outside.
Oh
Wow.
yeah. She wouldn't go swimming. She wouldn't go outside. She also like has a strange fear of the wind. And so if there's like any
Ah,
wind, and we live in a very windy place, and it's
mhm.
her fear has just, I don't even know if it is a fear, but whatever it is, it's really developed recently. So if she
Wow.
sees the leaves moving like a breeze, she'll say it's windy and I can't go outside. So that's really funny because we were there for 4 days. And I
Mm,
mean, we eventually kind of got her outside a couple of times, but she spent a lot of time inside coloring, which is
mm,
fine. She was happy.
mhm.
I also, I think I'm like, all right, she's 3. She's hardly left home for the last year. A
That's true.
vacation to me sounds amazing, but to her, it probably sounds terrifying because
Yeah.
every routine of hers was out the window.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. I actually have a friend who, um, I'm her I am now her, daughter's godmother, and
Oh,
yeah,
congratulations. How fun.
thank you. But, like, so she's gonna be 2 this year, but last year, right
Mhm.
in the middle of COVID, like, she was still a baby. I mean, she's still a baby now, but she was much younger, and so when I finally was able to see them in person, um, she was so terrified
Yeah.
to see me or anybody else because she was so used to just her parents,
Yeah.
and anybody else was like a complete stranger. And then,
Mhm.
even like if she saw people without a mask on, she was like terrified because her
Right.
norm was
Yeah.
like
Ugh,
people have masks, people wear masks. This is who people are now. And
people
and then
are
also,
masks.
yeah, and then now like anybody else that's around me that is not my mom and dad, they're like strangers. And
Oh, yeah.
it's like fear would come up. It was so interesting, and it took a while for her to warm up
Yeah.
to me, and then she was okay, but it was so interesting. So I imagine even with you, like with your younger baby Calvin, how
Yeah.
he was like a quarantine baby too.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Mm,
he literally came into the world looking at masks. I was wearing a
yeah.
mask when I birthed him. My husband was wearing a mask, all the
Oh
doctors. So
wow.
that was really interesting. He didn't see a lot of faces.
Yeah.
Yeah, kids love structure and routine. And I
Hmm.
sometimes wonder, I'm like, is Shelby just really shy? Because she really does like to be just kind of with mom, which I love.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
but also, is it
Hmm.
being exacerbated because of quarantine, which I'm
Right.
sure it's part of it.
Yeah. Well, with
So,
time, you'll know, but
yeah.
I love to hear that she's in on the 1,000 hours as well.
Yeah, my mom just came over to, be here when they woke up from their nap, and she's like, "Oh, so what are you doing?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm recording a podcast." And ironically, because it's funny, I got Shelby outside for the first time today in a week because she just refused to go outside last week.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and just like ironically, we're talking about outdoor time.
I know.
And she watches my kids 3 days a week. So
Hmm.
my mom's always trying to get Shelby and Calvin outdoors, and they always talk about getting their D3, their vitamin D. And
Hmm.
Shelby apparently last week was telling my mom, "I don't want to get any D today."
She said it.
All right, girl. So
That is
that's
so
all part of
funny.
the challenge,
Yeah.
I don't want it to be, I want it to be fun. It's,
Hmm.
it's a fun thing for her and I and Calvin to do. It gets us outdoors. We'll see how many years we officially do it. In that
Hmm.
group I'm in, there's now people who they no longer track. They're just, they just get
It's like a
outside when they
habit.
can. Yeah, it's just become
Hmm.
a habit. So it's fun. I challenge you
I know. I'm
to
thinking
think
about it. I'm
about
like,
it a little bit.
yeah. So the website is 1,000. What
I
was
think
the
it's a
website?
thousand hours outside.com
Okay.
maybe.
Okay, I'm gonna
Or
look that
just
up.
Google
I'll link
1000
it for
hours.
anybody that's watching or hearing us. Because
Yeah,
it is
absolutely.
a cool activity to do, and I love challenges, and like I
Yeah.
love the checking the box. I'm
Oh,
that
so great.
person. It's so
Yeah.
rewarding.
It's so rewarding. I'm like,
Yeah.
when we did get back from our Palm Springs vacation, Calvin was outside a lot. Because that is actually that I should have mentioned that for our family, we only count hours where the kids are outside.
Got it.
Um, So if we like this winter, there were a couple times where like we went skiing and the kids stayed home. If they weren't outside, it didn't count. But
Okay.
I only do one kid because it gets too complicated with naps. So we
Ugh.
got home from our trip though, and I was like, oh my gosh, I have like 30 things to check off.
You're like,
It's so
yes,
exciting.
success.
I love checking. Yeah.
Oh my God, awesome. Well, Marla, thank you so much for sharing about this
Yeah.
experience. I mean, I'd never heard about it until now we're really getting into it. So I really appreciate it. And I really hope that other people that are listening can kind of think about this and see how they could be a lot more intentional with spending their time outdoors. I know that it could feel so much easier, like just turn on the TV or be on your phone. But
Yeah,
being outside, I mean, it creates such a difference in the way that we feel,
it
right?
does. Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. So I challenge others that are listening to
Oh.
see how that works for them too. But I'm definitely gonna look this up. I will link the website in the description somewhere. And
Perfect.
Marla, you're in Nevada, but you're also licensed in California, right?
Yeah, yeah. So I provide, yeah, I'll do a little snippet on my work. So I provide virtual therapy, teletherapy to California and Nevada
Mhm.
individuals, and then I do have a in-person private practice here in Carson City, Nevada, where I
Mm.
am seeing people in person again. I work with young children, adolescents, and adults. I try.
Nice.
I really enjoy working with kids. It was so much of my training. So it is
Mhm.
a big part of my practice, but I also work with adults too, which I really enjoy.
Awesome. And where can people find you if they want to learn more about you?
Yeah, so they can find me at marladietz.com. So I'll send you
Mhm.
that. I'm like on Instagram, but not on Instagram. One day, maybe my Instagram will take off, but we'll link that too, just in
Yeah.
case. Marla Dietz Therapy at Marla Dietz Therapy. So I'll send that as well.
Perfect. Thank you so much for being here. I
Yeah,
really
thank
appreciated
you.
hearing about this wonderful challenge that, again, I had no clue of, and hearing how you incorporate it into your family. And I really love the biggest part I think from it is that it's like kind of like we're doing what we can, and these are the goals, and also the number is just a number.
Yeah, it's just a number, It
Yeah,
is what it is. At the end of the day, we're trying something new and trying to do things that are good for us.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again. And thank you, everybody, for listening, watching. If you're watching us on YouTube or hearing us on Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio, where am I at? Stitcher, um, Spotify. I think I got them all. But thank you so much for being here. Please rate, follow, subscribe. And if there's any topics that you would want to hear more about, please send a note and I will be sure to respond. So thank you again, Marla. I really
Yeah.
appreciate you. And thank you, everybody, for listening. We'll talk soon. Take care. Bye.
Bye.